Hey there, everyone. This is Joe from the D&D 5e podcast, coming to you from Lake Havasu, Arizona, and I'm up here sitting in the shade on Lizard Peak. And it just occurred to me that there's a little tip for DMs. When you're dealing with a desert environment, like what I've got around me right now, you can use exhaustion and water as a way to monitor the party very easily. There are very, very few races and classes that have easy ways of dealing with procuring water when there just isn't water in the environment. Off the top of my head, I don't have any splat books in front of me or anything. I can think of the Water Genocide has access to create or destroy water as a second level racial spell once per day, which means that they can get 20 gallons once a day, which would probably be enough to keep themselves going and maybe one or two other people, depending on how hot it is. Right now it's about 107 degrees. And it's noon right now, and I brought with me a lot of water, and I've already gone through half of it. Luckily enough, I'm halfway through my hike, so I planned well. But it's important to remember that as a party spends an extended amount of time in the outdoors, especially in a very dry environment, they're going to have to carry a lot of weight of water, or they're going to have a way to get fresh water. When you look at water sources in the desert, Lake Havasu is on the Colorado River, so it has a fresh water source. Unfortunately, the water isn't purified or desalinated. So depending on your source of water, you may run into plenty of water in the desert, but it's all saline lakes, salt water. And if you drink that, it's just going to dehydrate you faster. Another important thing to consider is that even if your party is getting enough water, if they don't have a way to replenish the minerals and salts lost when they sweat, they're going to suffer from something called hypernatremia, which is a lack of salt in your body, because you're drinking plenty of water, but you're not replenishing any of the salts that get sweat out. So that's another way, and basically what that does is it limits the amount of gear that your party can take with them, and it limits what they're able to do out in the desert. Maybe they have to resort to going at night, or potentially they have to resort to finding sources of salt and water that are more easily brought about. And I would say that depending on the environment, it's not necessarily an easy task for even someone like a ranger, unless they're specified to an arid desert environment, to find water and resources. You can subsist without food for a while, but without water in a desert environment, you're going to start getting heat stroke and exhaustion, which you could use the exhaustion mechanic in 5e to emulate very quickly, in some cases within hours. It's also important to note that even though I'm sitting here and it's very hot and very dry, off in the distance there are a few thunderclouds starting because it's monsoon season. So one interesting thing you could have happen is have a 5 or 10% chance during a given period of time in the year that the desert is beset by torrential rains. So not only is the party having to deal with the extreme heat, extreme dryness, but suddenly it's hailing and there's wind and they have to watch out for flash floods. Overall, I would say that entering the desert should be a really interesting way to regulate what your party can do. Some classes are going to be better at handling it. Other classes are not going to be very good at handling it at all, especially classes that are typically your tankier, brawnier classes, like the fighters in full plate or the paladins. Anyways, let me know what you guys think about it, and post if you got any interesting desert stories or desert adventures. I remember in 3.5, I think it's Sandslash supplement. No. There's a desert-themed supplement in 3.5, and I'm really hoping that 5e is going to give us something similar. I really enjoy D&D in the desert. It gives you an awesome opportunity for some really interesting encounters. Anyways, this is Joe with the D&D 5e podcast, saying hey from Arizona. You guys have a good day.